Hey guys, what's going on? This is Colin Childs, a professional mix engineer from Pittsburgh. Today we're going to be looking at a pop rock song. The artist had sent over a guitar track with a vocal and some other instruments. So we're going to take a listen to that.
Cuando todo empezó, yo nunca imaginé estar en ese lugar, humillado y un poco más. Yo no creí que fuera así y ya no aguanto.
And here's the track with the instruments.
Hoy no quiero luchar. Solo sé que te anhelo y muero por ti. Y aunque ahora me duele, en su tiempo sabré por qué. Quiero decir, no entiendo el desierto. La noche.
Alright, so first thing we're going to do is work with the drums. I'm going to treat this track like a drum bus because this was previously mixed. I like to use Studio One Fat Channel. I think there's a lot of great compressors in there. They have a lot of different equalizers too. I'm going with the tube compressor and the RC500 EQ. Just adding a little bit of top end here. Doesn't really need much. Like I said, this has already been previously mixed into a bus. I'm going to go ahead and add the limiter on here. Just around -6 to level off those peaks. Not really doing too much damage to it. I like to go ahead and work with the bass next. Once again, adding the fat channel. I'm going to go with the RC500. Just try to get it to anywhere from -1 to -3 dB of reduction on the VU meter. I'm going to go ahead and switch that to the tube compressor, or tube comp, as PreSonus likes to call it. Just going to find a sweet spot here. Once again, -1 to -3 dB. Like I said, these have already been pre-mixed. I'm going to go ahead and open up an EQ that I like. I really like the vintage EQ for a lot of my bass tracks to bring out that mid-tone in the bass, as you can hear right there. I'm just going to work the EQ until I find that sweet spot that I like. Once again, I'm going to add a limiter. Just around -6 where it's peaking. Not going to do too much here. I'm going to go ahead and add a VU meter here so I can mix the drums and the bass. Go ahead and adjust this. This isn't going to change your final mix or anything. We're just doing this as a reference right now. We're going to get the kick around -3. Add in the bass. When the bass and the kick hit simultaneously, you're going to want that VU meter to read 0. This is a great little tool to get the perfect bass and drum mix. It's really great for mixing your low end. Moving on to the guitars. We have a cleaner guitar track here. I'm just going to go ahead and add a dynamic EQ. Great one. It's free. You can check out. It's called TDR Nova. The only downside to this EQ is that there are 4 bands that you can work with. But it gets the job done. It works great. As you can see, I'm just barely touching the threshold on these. Dynamic EQs are great for helping instruments sit in the mix well. I'm going to go ahead and spread this out a little bit more. Just getting rid of some unnecessary frequencies here that we don't really need. This is going to help it sit in the mix a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and open this up a little bit more. I'm just fixing an error here where the solo comes in. Fast forwarding through all of this. Once again, going with the Pro EQ in Studio One. Playing around here. Not taking too much off, gonna open that up a little bit more. And what I like to do with solos is add a chorus effect just to widen it. Solos can tend to be pretty thin, so I like putting this in there, and it can really widen it and have it cut through the mix a little bit better. And it adds a cool effect. After I do this, I'm gonna add just a little bit of delay on there as well. Be sure when you're doing this, you're always sending your effects to effects tracks. You don't want to put it in the channel itself, because then you can't really control it. You always want to have your original sound, and then behind it you want to have your effects send, so you can control that separately, and it doesn't really interfere with the original sound. And if you always want to go back, you can get rid of it very easily, or you can automate it and have it come in on certain parts. Here I'm just adjusting it so it's a quick delay, not very noticeable, but I like how it sits behind the mix and has a cool effect to it. I think it really brings out that solo and adds some depth to it. Here I'm just adjusting the levels so everything's pretty balanced and that solo cuts through. Remember, when you're leveling, you can always change your speaker volumes. Sometimes I like to mix fairly at low volume, and then as I move on towards the end, I like to crank it up. All I did here was create a guitar bus so I could mix them together. It also helps with leveling. Once I get them leveled the way I want it, then I can just go ahead and move that guitar bus fader up and down. I'm just doing some further mixing here, making sure everything's clean. Fast forwarding through that. Back to the guitar bus. Not going to add any compression or anything. These tracks are already pretty compressed, so I just put a limiter on there for the peaks. Nothing too major. Just an easy way to level things out, but you got to be careful. Here's where I finally realized the drum track was actually off. I couldn't tell what was off at first, but thankfully it was just one track. He must have exported that separately, but I went ahead and lined it up, made sure everything was in phase. You always want to make sure things are in phase. Just zoom in, look at the waveforms, and match it up basically. You can also do it by ear, and it makes a huge difference when everything's in phase. Everything's clean, comes through the mix. Very important. All I did there was add the TDR Nova. Finally getting to the original track with acoustic guitar and vocals. All I did here was put a Pro EQ on there, getting rid of everything 50 and below. Went ahead and added binaural pan. It's not going to mess with the vocals just because those are mono. Just going to mess with the acoustic guitar having a better spread. Went ahead and added the fat channel using the VT1 compressor. Adding top end, but being careful here not to add too much to the acoustic guitar because these tracks aren't separate, unfortunately. Added the TDR Nova here, and I also added the high pass and low pass filter. I didn't want too much high end coming out of there. A lot of people like their vocals crisp, but that could be a bad thing when there's too much high end. You want to be careful of that. I opened up the mid-range here. That's where I like my vocals to sit, right in the mid-range. I think that came out pretty good. I'm going to tweak that a little bit later on. Everything's pretty much done here. I'm just going to go through and mess around with some levels. Check out part 2 if you want to see the mastering of this track. And how I go about that process. Thanks for watching.